million faith. You talk to somebody that's getting married, well, we're going by the apartment. They're just laying the carpet and bringing the new washer and the new dryer in, and they're going to bring all of the new furniture. I mean, some of these people, they're divorced before they pay for the wedding. Really. Some people, just from their wedding alone, they're $25,000 in debt. That is not faith. You don't get married with $25,000 faith. You get married with $25 faith. Now, go fast forward about 30 years in the future. Amongst the things I wrote these lessons for grades 11 and grades 12 in our country. I guess you guys go to 12 years in your school? Okay. Ours does too. I personally went 13. But I really liked that grade. And here's what it was. It was to help your children before they went to a quote-unquote King James Bible-believing Bible college and lost their faith in the book. You know, some of you're going to send your child off to a college, and you're going to call the school and talk to the head man and say, now, are you King James? Oh, yeah, we're KJV here. Well, when we're King James, oh, yeah, you can send your child here. We believe that old KJV. And then as soon as they hang up, you know what they're going to say? We'll straighten that kid out when he gets here. And you'll send your child to this King James Bible-believing Bible college. And after he gets to this King James Bible-believing Bible college, he'll hear that King James is homosexual. The italics need to be taken out of the Bible. The archaic words need to be updated, and Easter doesn't belong there. And they'll lose their faith. So I said, you know, Lord, I get that. I mean, I would come into churches like this one, and I'd have a pastor who was grieved or parents that were grieved. And they'd say, we sent our child to a King James Bible college, and they came back, called us heretics for believing what they believed all their lives. So I started these lessons for grade 11 and grade 12. It took me 3 years to write the first year, grade 11. And just the graphics, just the 4-color graphics were $5,000. So I had the graphics done. I had these things all ready to go. I go to a printer. And I gave them to him, and I said, you know, here's how many copies I want. Here, I showed him what I wanted, told him how I wanted it done. And he said, okay. He said, I'll call you in about 2 or 3 weeks with a price. And I told my wife, I said, brace yourself. I said, 4-color printing is expensive printing, guys. And I said, brace yourself. I know this guy's going to tell me these are going to cost $24,000. Don't ask me why. We didn't have $24,000. But I said, I just know that's what he's going to tell me. And so the guy called me 3 weeks later, and he said, here's what you want, right? And yep. And it was everything I wanted. And he said, okay, so how much? He said, $47,000. I said, $47,000. And you know what I said? Now, here's how I think. Now, we didn't have $24,000, let alone $47,000. But here's how I think. I've been working on it for 3 years. You know what that means? That means for 3 years, young people have graduated from high school and gone to a Bible college with no defense. Now that they're done, they're not going to sit on the shelf and wait for me to get the money. So I said, print them. Print them. Guys, I'm telling you, I don't even know how the money came in, but it was all paid for. Of course, they are. You do notice I'm in Canada. I am a very wanted evangelist in the United States. I mean, there's different ways to define that, wanted. But you know, here's the thing, 47 and 5,000, you know what that was? $52,000. When we were just married, we needed $52 faith. We couldn't have handled $52,000 faith. Do you understand? But 30 years later, we had $52,000. You know why? Because now we had 30 years of building our faith up. You know what you need to do, young people? Listen, don't get everything the day you get married. Get the couch in your uncle's basement. I know the one that when you sit down, all of a sudden your clothes are wet and mice go somewhere else to live. But get that and start out needing little bitty faith. Because then you'll strengthen it and strengthen it. Because you can strengthen your faith. But guys, you cannot strengthen yourself against temptation. It's called temptation. And did the Lord say, pray that God will strengthen you against temptation? Come on, did he say that? No. What did he say? Lead me not into it. I'm going to give you some advice about temptation. Every single day, I would advise every single day, start your day by saying, please, Lord, please don't lead me into temptation. Do you understand there have been people that they woke up that day in love with the Lord Jesus Christ with a desire to serve him, and by sundown their life was ruined. Not because they got up with some plan of sin that they put in action. Not because they had some illicit desire. Because they woke up that day saying, boy, today's the day I am really going to do. No. You know, something they thought today was going to be just like yesterday and just like the day before. They did not know that that day they would pass through temptation and would not get through. So you know what you need to do? According to the Lord, your Savior told you every day, ask your Father, please lead me not into temptation. There is a second thing you can do about temptation. Don't lead yourself. Don't lead yourself into temptation. You know what you are tempted to do. Don't put yourself in temptation's way. You know, when in our Air Force, when one of our fighter bombers, whichever, when they're going to cross into enemy territory, they have amongst the screens on the panel of the cockpit is a computer-generated topographical map of where they're flying. And so they can see hills and mountains and ridges and everything. And on that topographical map, you know what they'll see? They'll see a little yellow dish, a little circle. And over here is a solid yellow circle. And over here is a solid yellow circle. You know what those are? Those solid yellow circles represent the radar sweep of an enemy anti-aircraft radar. And what that yellow circle tells this guy is, it is sweeping an area this big, and it's yellow because it's not picking anything up. It doesn't know you're here. Now, here's that yellow circle. If that pilot takes that fighter across into that circle, that radar will go around one time, bounce off that plane, get received back at that radar station, and suddenly from yellow, that will change red. That circle on his counsel, the one that picks him up, will go from yellow to red. That red does not mean he's going to get shot down. That red means he could get shot down. Now, do you know what his orders are when he takes that mission? Let me tell you what his orders are not. His orders are not, hey, when you go and bomb the enemy, see how many of those yellow circles you can turn red and still get home. You know what they tell him? When you see a yellow circle here and you see a yellow circle here, you know what you do? You fly here. Don't lead yourself into temptation. You know, everybody here knows what they're tempted to do. And I'm not into this. I'm not into this stand up, confess sins to everything. I don't want to hear about your dirty laundry. I don't want to hear about what goes through your mind or anything else. But if everybody here stood up and said, here's what I'm tempted to do. I am going to share a temptation with you. I mean, like, was this yesterday? This was either yesterday or the day before. It was a temptation. It was a terrible temptation. Almost gave in. I'd just eaten like a Baptist. And I was at the pastor's house. We were in Alberta. And there was a Tim Horton glazed donut. And it somehow knew my name and called to me in a very feminine voice. Come to me. Guys, I didn't need that donut. Now you say, oh, that's a little thing. I'm tempted. I didn't give in. I didn't need it. I didn't need it. In fact, I've still got it in my suitcase. But here's what I'm telling you. If we all stood up and said this, here is what I'm tempted to do, we'd be shocked. Oh, yeah, I mean, there'd be some things that just be deplorable. But then there would be some, I mean, could you imagine if somebody said, yeah, pray for me because I'm tempted to eat a dozen Tim Hortons donuts? If somebody stood up and said, that's my temptation, someone would go, whoa, wish that's all I had to worry about. Right? But what I'm saying is that everybody here, you know what you're tempted to do. I always say it this way. If you are a recovering gambler, don't retire to the Las Vegas area. Really, that's not the place to go. You say, well, I won't go down on the strip. It doesn't matter. You'll go to a grocery store and walk past a dozen one-armed bandits in the grocery store. You'll go to the gas station and walk past 3 of them there, but you probably won't walk past. You'll say, well, I just don't understand it. I just gave in. That's because you went where you knew you'd be tempted. Hey, if you are a recovering alcoholic, I wouldn't go to a bar and buy the hamburger. Because it might be the best hamburger in town, but it's going to have a problem with, you're going to have a problem with temptation. Don't lead yourself into temptation. I call leading yourself into temptation a stroll through a minefield. You might make it through, and then you might blow off a leg. I knew of a guy. He would go into this man's house. This man would go to work, and every day after his wife went to work, this guy'd come and spend 3 hours with his wife. You say, what? Oh, you know what they did? Actually, I do know what they did. They talked about sports. That's all they did. Not to me, 3 hours talking about sports is as close to sin as you can get. But you say, well, then what was wrong with that? I'll tell you what was wrong with that. That was a violation of the verse in the Bible that says to abstain from the appearance of evil. See, if you go into a bar and you buy a hamburger and a Coke, and you do not have a beer, you don't have any kind of whiskey, you don't have any strong drink, and you say, see, I didn't have any effect. When you walk out, that lost guy you work with, you think when he sees you walking out of the bar, he's going to say, I bet they had a hamburger and a Coke. No, it appears evil. And I'll bet you when that guy walked out of that house, I'll bet you the lost neighbor across the street said, bet they've been talking about sports. But see, here's the problem. You go and you talk about sports, and 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 you go and you end up in bed. And you say, gee, how did this happen? This happened the first time. Because you violated the scripture that said to abstain from the appearance of evil, and suddenly you put yourself in the way of temptation, and you gave in. I'll show you. This is not my hand. It only looks like my hand. Let me tell you what this is. This is a wooded area. This is a wooded area. It is 2 miles long. That's 95 liters. Okay, so it's 2 miles long, and it's 1 mile across. You live here, and the path to your house comes this way, and then 2 miles, 1 mile, 2 miles, 5 miles from here. Although you're only 1 mile away from your house, it is 5-mile trip. The reason you go around that woods is because in that woods live wolves. I'm not talking about fairy tale wolves. I'm not talking about a myth or a legend. I'm talking about wolves that you have seen, that you know of people having been killed by them. I mean, there are legitimate wolves. Wolves, that's the Greek word for politician. Anyway, and so this woods is full of wolves. And so no matter what, you know what you've always been told? You never cut through the woods. You come here, and you go 2, 1, 2, safe way home. But tonight, you're running late. And it's going to be dark in about 2 hours, and it's going to be raining. I mean, really, it's thunder and lightning off on the horizon. And inside about 15 minutes, you're going to get it. So maybe if I am real careful, I can get across that woods. So you start across that woods. You know what happens? Nothing. You don't get killed by a wolf. You don't see a wolf. You don't hear a wolf. You don't see a wolf footprint. I mean, nothing. See? But you know what you just did? You just violated that principle of abstaining from the appearance of evil. And here's why. The next time you come home and it's not getting dark and there's no rainstorm, you know what you're going to say? Gee, it's 5 miles from here. But I went across there before and nothing happened. I'll be real careful. And then if you're a Christian, you'll even rationalize this way. And I'll get home and I'll have 4 extra hours. I'll read my Bible. So you know what you do? Take the shortcut. And the next time you take the shortcut, pretty soon this is no longer the shortcut. This is the way home. And then one day you get halfway across and you get killed by a wolf. You say, how did that happen? It happened the first time. Guys, I am telling you, don't lead yourself into temptation. What are you talking about? I guess I would say this. Gentlemen, maybe 1 o'clock in the morning is not a good time to surf the internet for real estate deals. Okay? I mean, that just might not be the best time. So first, I do this every day. Ask God, please lead me not into temptation. Second, don't lead yourself into temptation. Third, now I want to say this on behalf of the men. Guys, there are times in our lives when we have to take a stand. I don't think you always have to take a stand. I can't get over guys that will die for everything. I'll die for that. I'll die for that. Oh, I'll die for that. I mean, there are some guys that are just ready to die. I got bad news for you. You can only die once. You can't near have as many convictions as you think. But I'm telling you, there's a time, guys. There's a time when you've got to take